All right, what's up? Good morning, you guys. Good to be back on the microphone. For those of you who don't know me, I wasn't on last season, so if you're a new listener, my name is Jeff Moore. I'm currently serving as the CEO for ICE, and I'm happy to be back on the microphone. So I've certainly been here for previous seasons, and I'm glad to be now that we have the PT Daily Show. Thrilled to be here. Probably every other Thursday, I'll swap the mic with my colleague Alan Fredendahl, the COO of the company, and share some life hacks and some insights into leadership and organization and all things in that direction. So what I want to chat about today is this prognosis delivery. So this is an area where prognosis slash plan of care. This is an area that I see a lot of people get tripped up, and that I myself often get tripped up where, we do a really good exam, a really good eval, and then that moment comes to kind of say, hey, here's what I think we should do, and here's what I think going forward it should look like. And we stumble there. And I think we stumble there. The primary reason is, I think the primary reason is we get too pathway anatomical, right? So we certainly historically, we've covered that issue of really trying to be more solutions based in our presentation as opposed to pathway anatomical based. So what I'm saying there is not so much trying to name the tissue that is a problem, but instead to phrase what we can do to help the person's symptom behavior and really form that as our pitch, if you will. So it's sort of a solutions-based plan of care pitch, and we'll chat about that in a second. But I think the other major issue is trying to do too much at once. I really believe the plan of care can't be pitched in one big clump. In other words, doing everything for that day and then having one moment where you do the entire pitch for the plan of care. Instead, I think it's much better done in two discrete pieces at specific time points. So let me explain what I'm saying here. So when you go through your eval, right, and you get done with your physical exam, and you've gotten to a point where you've got a pretty good working hypothesis. So you've got a pretty good idea of what you think is going on. Right? You think you know where the problem is, you think you know how irritable the problem is, and you're ready to see if you can do something about it, right? That something about it we call the trial treatment, right? So we're going to intervene, and then we're going to assess to see whether or not that intervention made any significant change. All right. Now that intervention can be a lot of things. That intervention can be pain science education. That intervention can be loading. It can be isometrics for someone who's got a really irritable tendinopathy they're having a lot of pain issues with. It can be manual therapy. It can be all sorts of stuff. But the point is, you hit that discrete area in your eval where it's like, all right, I think I know what's going on. Okay, and I'd like to try to see if I'm right by intervening a bit and see whether or not I can make a change. Okay, I believe the first half of your plan of care / prognosis pitch should take place right now. So before the trial treatment. And so what I think it should sound like, so let's take an example. Okay, we've got a patient, Doug, who comes in, and Doug has right-sided posterior leg symptoms, right? So low back pain, symptoms going down his right leg, and he presents with a lateral shift to the left. So shoulders are stacked off to the left a bit. And in his history, it sounds as though he might have what we could call a flexion derangement. So when he bends forward to tie his shoes, that is by far the thing that bothers him the most. When he stands up tall and walks, or when he gets really good posture, that seems to help. When he lies on his belly, that seems to feel good. So we pick up on this pattern that it seems like flexion is really bothering this guy, and it seems like extension is making things feel better, right? Then during the physical exam, we pick up on this left lateral shift, right? We see the radiating symptoms. And during the physical exam, it also behaves like a lumbar derangement. So we look at Doug at this point, and we say, Doug, it seems, man, like a lot of this stuff is coming from your back. I'm sure you noticed when we were kind of doing some range of motion with your back, and when I was actually pressing physically on your back, it seemed like we were able to increase and change those leg symptoms. So it seems like a lot of that complaint you have where you're bending forward is coming from your low back. I've got some ideas right now. I'd actually like to do a stretch to your low back to see if when I challenge that area, to see if we can't cause those symptoms to come up the leg, which would be a really good indicator that going forward, we're going to be able to solve this problem. Okay, that is the first half of the plan of care pitch, right? And what it really is, it's your permission for trial treatment, but it's your permission for trial treatment in a paradigm of what Doug can expect. So Doug now knows why you're doing what you're doing. He generally agrees with you, right? Because when you were pushing on his back, it increases symptoms. When he bent forward, it increased. So during the physical exam, you and Doug proved to each other that this seems to be coming from the lower back. And now you guys have clarified that verbally. So you and Doug are on the same page. This seems to be coming from the low back, right? We've got some strategies to put in place. We kind of know what provokes it. We know what makes it feel better. And now we're going to go in and mess around with this a bit, right? So now you actually jump in, right? And now this is very important how you do this, right? So now Doug gets up, and the first thing you do is say, Doug, can you show me that motion where you try to put your shoes on, right? And Doug leans forward and he says, oh, Jeff, man, I can feel it right there. Like, that's as far as I want to go. Good. And you measure where Doug's fingertips are able to get down his leg, and you measure how bad his pain is, and you measure how far the pain goes down his leg. So you get a really good baseline of Doug's symptom behavior before your trial treatment. Now, let's say on this day for Doug, he's lower irritability. So you jump up on his left side, and you do a lateral shift correction. Sorry, you couldn't see my hands, right? Not that this makes a whole lot of sense anyways. But the point is, you get up on Doug's left side and you do a lateral shift correction. So you actually push his shoulders back on top of his hips, or maybe even overcorrect that a bit, all the while monitoring the location of his leg symptoms. And during those few reps, right, Doug says, you know, Jeff, while you're doing this, I feel as though it's not as far down to my foot anymore. I only feel it kind of behind my knee, right? And you keep doing that because you're encouraged by these symptoms of centralization, these signs of centralization. And you're doing that, and as you're doing it, you knock out 12 to 14 reps, lower irritability patient, and Doug says, you know, Jeff, now that you're done, I really only feel it in my butt. I only feel it in my back and my butt. I don't feel it in my leg so much anymore. And it was really my leg that was driving me nuts. Well, first of all, Doug, thrilled to hear it. Second of all, let's go ahead and see you put those shoes on again, right? And now Doug bends forward again, and he goes significantly further. It's never perfect, right? But Doug says, Jeff, that was a noticeable change. Like that feels significantly better. It isn't gone. I still feel it in my back and leg, but it's not going nearly as far down. And I felt like that motion was so much more available. Okay, you have now proved to Doug, right, that what you can do in this treatment room inside of this plan of care in general has significant merit to reduce his primary concern, which is pain in his back and leg whenever he bends forward, the shoes being a primary example. So my point here is you now have proof going in to the second half of your plan of care pitch. The reason I would argue it goes poorly so often is we try to pitch the plan of care without a shred of proof. So we finish the physical exam, and then we give this big speech about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. The problem is you haven't shown the patient that you can solve their problem yet in any way, shape, or form, even take the edge off of it, right? And so it's very, very hard to get buy-in in a scenario where you have nothing to sell or no proof on the table. But now that I asked permission for that plan of care, asked permission for that trial treatment, right? And now that I've shown Doug that we can make things a bit better, now my second half, my plan of care becomes so much easier, both in content and in buy-in. So now we say, Doug, that's very encouraging, man. Because Doug generally says something along the lines of, Jeff, that feels a bit better. And I'm not trying to sell you guys that Doug says it's absolutely perfect. But Doug says it feels better. It feels loosened up. It feels as though I can do that better than I've been able to in quite some time. Doug, that's awesome to hear, man. And that generally is how folks who present your way, how they respond, right? Once we kind of work that, what we call that lateral component, or once we square up your shoulders, it seems like we move forward nicely, and then we kind of begin working forward and backward. And Doug, really over the next 4 to 6 weeks, I would expect you to typically respond very favorably, to a point really where, 4 to 6 weeks, coming in twice a week, let me do a lot more of that lateral shift stuff. I've got a few things I want to add on to that. So we're going to do things on your belly where I actually increase some of the forces and do things more straight on me, actually pushing on your vertebra. And then we're going to do some additional stretching and strengthening. So it's kind of a whole package we're going to offer over the next few weeks, really building on what you saw happen today, right? That's an easy sale for Doug, because Doug says, well, yeah, Jeff, what you did already worked. Right? And so if you're saying there's a bit more that you can add on to that, and it sounds like 4 to 6 weeks is a reasonable investment of time, twice a week for 4 to 6 weeks, that now with proof on your side becomes the easiest sale in the world, because all you're really doing is you're leveraging what you've already shown him, right? So what I'm saying here is consider breaking your plan of care or your pitch or your sale to the patient for how much PT they want to invest in, how they really want to go about this. Consider breaking it into 2 parts. Have the first part be right before the trial treatment. where you say, hey, here's what I think is going on. I think it's coming from your low back. Does that make sense to you, Doug? You know, when we were moving your low back around and pushing on your low back, we were able to recreate those symptoms. It seems like when you actually lean forward and utilize your low back, that's when it comes on. But really, you tolerated the physical exam great, so your irritability is not very high. But Doug, do you see what I'm saying, how it could be coming from your low back? Well, yeah, Jeff, of course I see what you're saying. You know, when you were pushing on me, it caused my leg pain. Good. I've got some things I want to do here for a second and see if we can't make some reasonable change to that. Does that sound good to you? Right? And Doug says, yeah, it sounds great. I mean, that's what I'm here for, Jeff. I want to try to make some change. So now you've sold the first part, the explanation of where you think it's coming from and how you're going to initially solve it. You've sold that first part already. Now, then you get proof on your side, and then you actually sell the visits, right? So now you come back and say, having seen that, Doug, here's what I expect. And I promise you, Doug is way more, number one, engaged, and number two, likely to buy into what you have to say. So if you can break that plan of care pitch into two pieces, where you think it's coming from and how you're going to initially solve it, and then the full on, here's what I'd like to do entirely, I think you're going to have a lot more success with your overall plan. Sorry, guys, my dog is over here causing a fit by the door. I think you're going to have a lot more success in that overall pitch. Right? So give that a shot in the clinic and let me know what you think. All right? And then report back. And what I'm going to do, because a lot of you guys are going to be asking me, well, Jeff, what if you can't create a significant within session change? That's a different conversation, and it's one for a different day. So maybe after Alan hops in the mic, I can jump back on and do that, because we really go about that a very different direction. When it's more of a persistent pain driven issue, it's not nociceptive, or it's not neurogenic. It's something that we have to target over a longer period of time. We'll chat all about that soon. So hope everybody has an awesome Thursday. Thanks for welcoming me back to the mic. It's been a long time. It's good to be back on the show. And I've got a whole bunch of topics I want to offer. So guys, take care. Kill your Thursday. I'm going into work right now. We'll talk to you guys soon.